Hey everyone. Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jonas asked Rivian management, where do you see the company? Where do you see the biggest opportunity for Rivian stock over the next 12 months? And when I read that question, I thought that's a really good thing to consider here if you're a Rivian stock investor. What are the targets like for the next 12 months? What should we expect? What should we look for? And where can the stock price go if we do meet those targets? So that's what I'll talk about in this video. But first, let's look at the stock price Rivian over the last couple of years since it became a public company. You see, the stock price had soared all the way up to over $150 per share. The stock is now down all the way to $12.93. It's down over 90% off its high. The stock market has not been kind to Rivian stock, and so can it recover back up to these levels in the next 12 months? Well, let's look at what Rivian plans to do, and then I'll come back and revisit where the stock price could be towards the end of this video. So this question was asked to Frank Klein, Rivian's chief operations officer, who responded by saying, the priority over the next 12 months is to continue focusing on the ramp up of our normal facility in Ohio. So that's where they are ramping up production and certainly driving down the cost. They also plan to repair the ramp up of our R2 platform. Right now, Rivian is selling the R1S and the R1T. The company plans to sell its next generation R2 products soon as it can ramp up that platform and start to make sales in that category. So it's spending a good amount of money on research and development and trying to figure out that next platform to make that ready to come in. But for now, they really anticipate continuing the ramp up of the R1 line. And in the second half of this year, we should really see the numbers being really close to our installed capacity. Remember, Rivian has said for 2023, they plan on producing 50,000 vehicles. In the first quarter, they only produced around 9,000. So if they plan to get to that 50,000, they really need to ramp up production. And here, the COO, Frank Klein, saying, you're really going to start to see our numbers be close to our max capacity towards the end of the year. So they're really going to ramp that up. And on the cost initiative, yes, I mean, we still see a significant gap between what we should be paying our suppliers and what we're currently paying our suppliers. Now remember, over the last couple of years, supplies have been in significant shortage, right? And that's across the board. It's not just for electric vehicle manufacturers. There was widespread supply chain shortages. It was one of the consequences of the coronavirus pandemic. Thankfully, those supply chain issues have been easing, and so prices have been coming down, and the negotiations that companies like Rivian have had to make with suppliers have been shifting towards manufacturers' favor, right? No longer do they need to agree to paying upfront, paying, 24 months in advance and waiting for 36 months to get the supply. So all of these deals that manufacturers had to agree to because supplies were in such shortage are beginning to ease in addition to pricing. So all of that is working in Rivian's favor. So we're working on closing the gap within the next few months. So that's really my priority. For me, it's literally just executing the plan we put together as a team. So if Rivian does indeed hit the targets for this year, meaning it hits the 50,000 production target, it brings price down considerably. I mean cost, so price of materials, it brings that down considerably. I think the stock could be in a great position because if they meet those two targets, then the next thing they will probably announce by the end of the year is the production targets for 2024. And if the targets for 2023 have been met, that means the target for 2024 is likely to be much higher. 75,000 units, 100,000 units at much higher gross profit margins. If they do complete these goals, let's say they complete 50,000 units for 2023, and they announce that for 2024 they are going to produce 100,000 units and they're going to fulfill their target. Remember, they've also announced that at the end of 2024 they plan to be gross profit margin positive. So if they complete the goal for 2023 and reiterate that goal for 2024, man, I think that could be a huge boost to the stock price. I would not be surprised if they complete those goals for the stock price to be closer to $30 per share at the end of the year. If they meet those goals, right? That means 50,000 production for 2023, announcing a target for 100,000 for 2024 while reiterating the target for gross profit margin positive by the end of the year. If all those three metrics are hit in 2023, I would not be surprised if the stock price hits $30 per share at some point towards the end of the year. Now that there's a huge risk to that, to those estimations and assumptions. It's just something that is potentially possible for Rivian stock over the next 12 months if it meets those targets. So this is one of those companies, this is one of those stocks with very, very high return potential, but there's also a very, very high degree of risk, right? So it's a high risk, high reward stock, which can be good for some investors, but it can be not right for other investors, right? It just depends on your preference. But that's all I've got for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.